So the next step becomes dealing with the LEDs, getting the spacers on them. I'm going to dump them out here. There's an open end on the spacer, and there's an end for the two leads to poke out through. And as I understand it, you want the two little holes that the leads poke out through at the bottom. This is going to take a while. These are tiny parts. So I've got all the resistors and diodes in. There's a row of 390 ohm resistors up here between these two banks of LEDs. There's three 1K ohm resistors here. There's a row of diodes across the bottom here, and of course the diodes are polarized, and there's one more diode up here. So with all those components in, looking at the instructions, we move on next to stuffing the LEDs. I've got the board raised up off the work surface, kind of taped down to help hold it in place, and this really just becomes inserting the LEDs. There's a little on the board. Right in here is a little tiny picture of an LED, and it shows the long leg to the left and the short leg to the right. And that coincides with what he says in the manual. So it really is going to be that. The long leg goes over to the left and goes in the hole, and then the right leg. And again, the long leg to the left, and then the shorter leg to the right. As you can see, this is going to take a while. I won't record the entire thing. Bent the legs up a bit. Just another note, I have pre-put the spacers on all the LEDs. There's a large open end on the little spacer that goes towards the LED, and then there's a closed up end with two small holes for the leads that goes to the bottom. These get the LEDs up at the right height. Now in the manual, he mentioned putting the spacer, see if I can get one to do it here, the spacer kind of on loosely on the leads. Putting the leads in the board and kind of working it into place, then pushing it down so it kind of locks in place. I find that in practice a little more difficult. I've just put the spacers all the way up on the end. They do seem to grab in the board with sufficient tension that they're not going to fall out. And of course, when they move on to soldering, we're going to take this template and we're going to use it to align them all and kind of help hold everything in place before we flip it over to solder. Well, I've got all the LEDs in. That was a lot of work. It looks like I've got 4 left over here, which is really nice. Again, the long lead on the LED, I don't even be able to see it. There's a long lead and a shorter lead. And per the little picture, long lead goes to the left. The manual also states that. The next thing becomes this little overlay panel to kind of align everybody. just kind of press it down on here as best as we can. Remove this tape. Again, I've got all those leads poking out the back. Which makes this kind of interesting. Just don't have a whole lot of space to put fingers in to create compression. But that should hold them all pretty tightly in place. And really now it becomes a matter of soldering. And that's going to be a lot of soldering. So I think, going to solder. Trying to debate if I want to do one pin on every LED, then kind of recheck them all for height, then come back. That might be the best approach here. Oh, I was wearing the wrong glasses there the whole time. No wonder my eyes hurt. Now I'm going to spin it around and start on this top edge of the board. And hit every other leg here. That didn't take any solder at all. The wick in this, or the flux in the solder, certainly shows up on these black PCBs, which is fine. I don't know if I misread or what. I'm not sure why we haven't put in the IC socket yet. No, maybe we don't put the connector on yet because it would be difficult to solder around. That could be. I'm just going to take a peek. See, some of them aren't flush up against the PCB, so the height is slightly different. Which is why I did just one leg, so I can heat the solder and push them in flush. I don't know why that one doesn't want to slide. Where it went. doing this with all of them. Not that I think the small amount of delta in height would make a difference. And then I'll come along and solder up the other pins. It's nice that there's extra LEDs in the package, just in case we damage one. I know I'm getting my hand in the way of the second camera. And just so it's said here, I did the one row and now the leads are all trimmed out. Then I can do the next row, trim the leads out, etc., etc. So I'm not trying to snake the soldering pencil tip down around leads. Also gives me an opportunity, like I said, to push in on each one and make sure it's seated. I can feel some of these aren't as seated as I would like. Anyhow, I'm not going to bore you with the rest of the soldering, at least in real time. So we'll continue the build. So you may have noticed I left one LED unsoldered. It's sitting higher than the others and didn't want to push down flush. And I'm really not sure why. I'll try to push it down flush again, and if not, I'll remove it and take a look. No, it really doesn't want to move down flush. Let's see if we can get the alignment panel off and actually take a look at it. Just really doesn't want to sit down flush. Actually, I think I'll just pull it out and try a different one, since we've got some spares. I need to be careful doing this. I don't lift the trays. Really sure. Oh, I see. One of the leads is actually kind of tore up on it and looks kind of weird. Luckily there's spares. So let's see if I can get one of the spares in. If I've got enough. I really need to clear that hole out. We'll add some fresh solder to it. Cleared the hole out well. Getting long lead to the left. That one looks to be seated in flush. Looks better. Yeah, one of the leads had like a weird crimp in it that was keeping it from going all the way down into the hole to be soldered in. I don't really know why. So I think we have all the LEDs in. I did pay attention to the long lead to the left. So let's see what we move on to next. So the IC socket on the front side of the board. We'll just take care of this in this video. Not quite sure why he didn't do this earlier. I'm paying attention to the notch in the socket. Take the little shield off, get a bit more room back there. Socket's got a bent pin, that's why it didn't want to go in. It's got another bent pin. I'll tack in the two corner pins and press it up flush with my finger. Check it. Oh, looks flush. And we will get it soldered in. I'm actually using a little bit larger tip here than I traditionally do. That's probably closer. If you've got a inexpensive to medium range soldering pencil. This is probably closer to the size tip you have. And we move on from there. Raspberry Pi onto the PCB. Okay, it wants the 40-pin header next. This, of course, is what the Pi plugs into. It, of course, goes on the back of the board. Hold it in place long enough to just kind of tack it into place, and then I'm not having a lot of luck with this. Now I'm only going to do one pin here, and then I'm going to reflow that, make sure it's pushed up tight, and the other corner. I'll do the same thing. It looks square to me. And we will solder away. Sorry for the noise in the background. That's the washing machine. It's the weekend here, and I got to get laundry done before regular work this upcoming week. This will be a little bit trickier over here. Up a bit will help me not touch the LEDs. With the soldering pencil, it would melt the plastic on it, of course. The washing machine's going to spin here. Apologies again for the background noise. I think we've got it. See that with my fat fingers, I've already kind of knocked a couple of LEDs around, but the alignment and backing plate here will pull them back into alignment. So I really think that's everything I can do before mounting the Raspberry Pi, and I haven't actually prepped the Pi yet. So there's where we are. Next step, of course, will be to prep the Pi and get it put in place, but I'll set this aside for now and we'll wrap this segment up.